When you're researching our shared past, one of the most common items you're going to find on the dinner table is something made out of flour. And well, how do we get from wheat plants to our powdery flour and ultimately bake that into bread? As we're going to find out in this episode of Retracing History, as we are here at the St. Vincent Gristmill, which has been producing flour for over 150 years. Let's check it out. The gristmill was constructed as a result of plans by Father Boniface Weimer. He had journeyed from Bavaria in the 19th century to spread the Benedictine traditions in North America. He was originally expected to establish a monastery in central Pennsylvania, where some of the first Catholic settlements beyond the East Coast had been erected. But when he received an invitation from a Pittsburgh bishop to assist their diocese, he moved over the Allegheny Mountains and settled in amongst a small Catholic parish dedicated to St. Vincent de Paul near present-day Latrobe, Pennsylvania. When Weimer arrived in 1846, the parish consisted of only a handful of structures. There were far fewer Catholics in the area than expected, but in the coming years, Weimer and fellow monks managed to turn the parish into a self-sufficient monastery that now has a distinction of being the oldest of its kind in the United States. In order to sustain the monastery, cattle were raised, gardens were tilled, and the surrounding hills were cultivated to grow wheat, oats, barley, rye, and corn. The gristmill, which would grind the grains into flour, would be of use not just for the monastery, but also be available for nearby farmers. Unlike most structures at St. Vincent, the gristmill would be constructed of wood, beginning in 1854. Oak was used for the beams and flooring, chestnut for the clapperboard siding, all of which was sawed to specification on Chestnut Ridge, then pulled by horse and manpower to the build site, where the lay brothers of the monastery worked tirelessly to fabricate their gristmill. Construction progressed through the latter half of the year on a sandstone foundation, with all of the mechanics producing the first sack of flour even before construction wrapped up in December of '54. The gristmill got off to a bad start as it was completed during a bad crop. But within a few years' time, business was booming. Over the years, a few alterations were made to the original 1854 structure. For a period of time, a sawmill was operated on the west side of the building. It likely was very busy in producing beams in 1883 when an eastern addition was constructed for the gristmill. In 1952, the steam which powered the machinery were replaced with electricity. But beyond these upgrades, the process of making flour at St. Vincent has remained the same for over a century and a half. Grain that is stored on the upper floors, where it is turned by the lay brothers for drying, until the time comes for it to be grounded. A chute drops the grains to the basement, where an elevator of scoops takes its load to the third floor. It is passed through a grain cleaner such as this one that was used until the 1970s. The different screens would be inserted for different types of grain being dropped through the cleaner. The process separated seed for replanting and other debris from the grains going down to be ground. Because wheat and cockle seeds are the same size, a specialized separator was installed in 1913 below the cleaner. The desired grains then drops into a ready bin on standby to be dropped into the burr stones for grounding. The gristmill owns two pairs of stones which were quarried in France in the 1850s. Each pair is held in place by iron bands, less than an inch separating the two. Now, I was surprised to learn that in the grinding process, only the upper stone is revolving. The lower stone, or bed, remains stationary. It's also worth noting that the grain is being cut, not crushed, by the burrows along the faces of the burr stones. The burrows also guide the newly created flour off the stones and down into the basement. A second elevator system hoists the flour to the third floor to be deposited through a sifting bolt, which separates unbleached flour, middlings, and bran from each other. Additional equipment, including middling purifiers, would improve upon the sifting process. Ultimately, these different grains are deposited in separate bins to be prepared for packaging. The gristmill contributed to the growth of the monastery, allowing for the once modest parish to become one of the largest arch-abbeys in the Western Hemisphere. For the local community, the gristmill was also vital in turning their crude settlements into permanent towns. Father Weimer was happy to observe, all the farms from the neighborhood and from far come to us, Catholic and Protestant alike. At peak operation in the early 20th century, the St. Vincent Gristmill produced enough flour to make more than 150,000 loaves of bread, with nearly 4,000 bushels of grain in storage. Because of its role in establishing the monastery and developing nearby communities, and its Bavarian architecture, the gristmill was listed on the National Register of Historical Places in 1978. Today, the gristmill has a far lighter workload, but it still makes enough flour for the meals of the monks. In addition, a general store is now operated within the gristmill where the public can buy their own sack of St. Vincent flour. It's even sealed with a knot created by the very millers who keep this part of history alive and well. Well, did you enjoy the gristmill? If you did, be sure to hit the like button down below. If you want to see more episodes of Retracing History, be sure to subscribe to Readout Productions. And if you want to go the extra mile, you can buy me a cup of cappuccino through Ko-fi. Link will be in the description below. Well, thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video.